I'm joined today by Debbie Oakes, our vice chair, our clerk, Mariah Lestage, Mary Wright, Francesca Galassi, and Peter Polimas. Also from staff, we have George Meservey, Director of Planning and Community Development, and Karen Sharpless, our administrative assistant. George, first item is public comment
Yes.
and correspondence.
Under correspondence, we do one piece of correspondence, which was a email from the library board trustee. Did you pass that out? So there was some edits that they requested on a couple sections of the plan. I thought it was just wiser just to make those edits, so they've been incorporated already into the draft, which is going to our graphic designer now.
Great, thank you, George. Other than for the public hearing that we're about to have, is there any other public comment on any other subject that's not on the agenda tonight? Anyone? Anyone online, Peggy?
No hands raised.
Great, thank you very much. With that, we'll start our public hearing on the Orleans Comprehensive Plan. So, Mariah, would you please read the public hearing announcement?
Yes, I will read the public hearing notice into the record. Town of Orleans Planning Board. Pursuant to the provisions of Town of Orleans Home Rule Charter, Section 9, the Orleans Planning Board will hold a public hearing on March 10th, 2024 at 4 p.m. at the Orleans Town Hall. The purpose of the hearing is to accept public comments on the proposed 2025 Orleans Comprehensive Plan. The plan was developed over a 3-year period with extensive public input and is intended to guide future decisions to realize the vision for the community. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Board at 19 School Road, Orleans, Massachusetts, 02653, or by emailing the Planning Board at gmeservey@town.orleans.ma.us. The plan is available on the Town of Orleans website at Orleans Comprehensive Plan/OrleansMA. The hearing may be attended in person or via zoom.com using the login information that's printed here. There's a link, there's a phone number, there's a webinar ID.
Thank you. Great, thank you, Mariah. I want to also announce that Lynn Eichholt, member of the board, has joined us via Zoom. Welcome, Lynn. And George, if you would, get us started on the public hearing.
So this is the fourth hearing we've had on the draft comprehensive plan. This is the one required by the town charter before the plan can go to the town meeting. So I'm just going to run through what I think is a good synopsis of what the plan says, what it is, what it isn't. So these are the areas we're going to look at today. If you would turn your eyes to the screen, we will talk about the purpose of the long-range plan, the process used to bring the various opinions together, the way the plan is structured, the community challenges, and the major themes of the plan. I will give you some information on the various sections, but certainly not a detailed recitation. And finally, the last steps, we'll go over the last steps needed to complete the plan and begin to use it. So first, let's go over the purpose of the comprehensive plan. It is a long-term vision of the community that anticipates change and guides action in a manner consistent with community values. It is a supporting framework and a rationale for the adoption of various regulations and bylaws and other measures in order to manage development for the future. It is both aspirational and pragmatic. It is a roadmap for us to use and for those who may come after in town boards and on town staff. And it is, most of all, a community-informed guide. This is a reflection of what the planning board has heard from the community over a 3-year period. It is a compilation and a distillation of everything we have heard to help decision makers in the future. So the planning board was fully responsible for the process. They provided direction, guidance, and judgment throughout the process. A working group of town staff and 2 planning board members got together, and then we began the process of conducting public workshops. They were held in different locations, in the daytime and the nighttime, and we had 150 residents show up to these workshops to help us develop a community vision. A townwide survey was issued, and I'm pleased to say, excuse me on the mouse, pleased to say we had really good response. We got about 16% of the year-round households provided us with a response to the survey. So some people may say not enough. Well, I agree, never enough, but that's a very, very high number for a public survey in the modern day. So all of this critical data from the survey was used as a starting point for our town goal update. We incorporated then, we started working with town key boards and committees. The first thing we did is we asked them to identify which goals from the 2006 plan were still relevant, which needed to be changed, and which had been completed and could be put aside. Then we asked them to comment on initial drafts of new goals that the planning board had put together. And when all that was done, we met with each committee to go over the draft goals and actions before moving on to a full draft of the plan. So we've tried to make this as reflective as we could. So the 2025 plan, also called Orleans 2050, is different than the 2006 plan in that it follows the Cape Cod Commission guidelines, sort of a comp plan light, they said. It leans more on bulleted goals and actions than the text of a plan. And by this, we were able to cut about 100 pages off of the previous plan. So it's bulleted, visual, it's condensed format, as condensed as we can do it in town government. The plan is action-oriented and tells what actions the town needs to do to ensure a healthy future. We are still working on having performance measures to demonstrate progress on the many goals, but I'll touch on that briefly in the action plan in a couple of slides. So I'm going to take a few minutes to brief you on the contents of the plan. This is a high-level overview. I'll start with two general statements, the vision statement and the growth management policy. Some of you will recall that there was a series of visioning workshops that I mentioned, as well as a townwide survey. The outcome was a vision for the community. This is the aspiration of what we as a collective hope to become overall. And it is summarized as what's on the screen. The vision for Orleans is a balanced, diverse, and thriving community where the town's unique character flourishes with commitment to strategic growth and environmental stewardship. And central to the vision is the commitment to enhancing the quality of life in the town for its residents. The plan also contains a growth management policy. This is the future land use map that's in the plan. The policy is to guide and direct growth towards areas of the town that have appropriate supporting infrastructure to advance community elements, including vibrant economic centers, affordable and attainable housing, coastal resiliency, and several more things. You can see from the map of the town, the yellow area in the middle, sort of in the middle as I look at it, is the business areas of the town. That's from the Brewster line to the Eastham line along Route 6A. That is our downtown corridor, which has public sewer, public water, and it is the focus of many of our growth initiatives for residential and for economic development work over time. The green areas shown on the map are protected from development. The largest block over to the left there is the town watershed. The town had the foresight to protect 500 acres of land from future development in the early 1960s, and we benefit from that today. There are East Orleans and South Orleans rural business districts. We see those as small neighborhood centers, hopefully thriving more in the future. And up in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the Marine Development District, which is at Rock Harbor. There's currently a marine business district in that location. It's not overly used. It is the location of the Captain Cass restaurant, recently reopened, as well as a couple other businesses that are there and some significant investment by the town that is going on right now. So as we listen to residents and discuss the future, some real challenges have come to the forefront. Protection of the natural environment and its ecology is primary in the minds of many residents we heard. Affordability of the community for all residents certainly is an issue. There's a crucial need for commercial investment in a more year-round economy. The overall population and the demographics of the community are a concern. I will get into these just slightly deeper in a moment here. As to town character, Orleans is a very nice town. We want to make sure that we preserve and enhance its best characteristics as we encourage efforts toward a bright future. There is also a need to address energy issues as well as responding to a changing climate. So in all of this, our planning board, we do our planning on a peninsula. We're just surrounded by water. Our drinking water is from a sole source aquifer. Because of our setting, there are some physical limits to growth in this area and some practical limits based on resources, infrastructure, transportation, et cetera. Those are not limiting factors, but they're acknowledged as this is where we live and this is where we're doing our planning. So the next couple slides just match up those challenges with the issues that are addressed in the plan. The area of ecological preservation is broad. Orleans needs to address nitrogen management for its salt waters, phosphorus management for fresh waters. We need to work to treat stormwater effectively to meet our MS4 permit and for other reasons. The control of invasive species is something that has been needed and is still needed in a variety of places. And we want to work to prevent critical habitat loss as the town continues to develop and to redevelop. Under housing and authority and affordability, housing is a much discussed challenge. I don't think we need to go deep into that. It affects residents, families, has an impact on the local economy. Today, people who earn a living here have limited choices. The cost of housing is very high. There is overall lack of supply, both ownership and rental. The town is taking measures in that direction. They take a while to come to fruition. The planning board successfully brought a major zoning change to the town meeting in November to encourage new residential development. So we're planning while we're doing work, and there's kind of a funny interchange in between. All of these things are compounded by the pressures of a seasonal community, and we'll be using the Seasonal Communities Act to respond in a variety of ways. A new area of need in the community is to respond to our energy needs and to become more resilient to climate conditions that have come to the forefront. We are challenged by the need for better energy sources beyond fossil fuels. For sea level rise, storms, and other indicators of a changing climate are a challenge. Erosion of shorelines on all sides of town. I couldn't think of a side of the town that doesn't have erosion going on in it, especially this time of year. There are areas in town that are prone to frequent flooding. We think those will increase over time. And the emergency needs of the community must be met under a variety of conditions. Challenges for the local economy include, and we'll talk about some of those later in the meeting. We have a limited customer base out here on this peninsula. There is a seasonality of population and corresponding business support that goes with that population. We have difficulties in hiring and retaining employees, both the town and the private sector, certainly. And the qualities of the existing commercial space are not necessarily aligned with contemporary requirements for business. And this is something that we've tried to get a better handle on and orient our growth development patterns to better serve that. And finally, there are economic transitions that are outside of our hands, including the changing nature of retail, the move toward a host of services that are done online. We also have an aging ownership of business owners in the downtown, which is both a transition and an opportunity over time. Population size and composition is a concern. The planning board has had some recent discussions about this. The makeup of the community has shifted significantly in the last decade. There has been a loss of working age and young families, and an increase in the residents who are over 65 years old. The demographic changes affect needs for services, both for the people who are here now and the demographic cohorts we're trying to attract. Long-term, there is a need to put in policies into place in the town that will rebalance the community so it does not lose its long-term vitality. And the last challenge here is a little harder to define, but very important to residents: town character and quality of life. Residents treasure the unique aspects of the town. It still has a sense of place, and we want to build on that and enhance as the community develops. The historical context of Orleans is important. We need to take steps to protect community heritage. And as to quality of life, the challenges include a need for improvements that serve the mobility needs, especially of an aging population, and the town services should respond to the specific needs of the population. Let's see. So the community faces many challenges for the future. From them, we developed goals for each plan section. The goals can be summarized by major themes: to protect the natural environment, to support a diversity of housing options, to build a healthy year-round economy, to be strategic with our infrastructure investments. We want to transition to clean energy sources, improve the ability to get around the town, have a town with sufficient recreational and social and cultural opportunities. We're a bit lacking in that regard, but moving in the right direction. And the built environment should be attractive and should improve the visual qualities of the town. And last of all, we want to maintain fiscal responsibility in all that the community does. So this is the way the plan is structured. The overall plan, it's organized under 3 major systems per the Cape Cod Commission's recommendations. There's our natural environment, that is groundwater, surface waters, wetlands, wildlife, open space. The social or community systems of the town, the economy, housing, the services of the community, history and heritage, arts and culture, and governance. And then there is the built environment. That is community design, public infrastructure, transportation, energy and climate, and resiliency. So for each area of the plan, you will find the current status or brief background of each area, what has been done to date, a listing of the key issues, a summary of issues to be addressed in the future as we were able to glean them, and most importantly, the goals, objectives, and actions, including priorities, identifying resource allocation, etc. So of the 3 systems, I just want to give you a sense of the goals that are in the plan. Here are the plan sections associated with the natural systems. The goals are to protect groundwater, which is our drinking water as well, to maintain high-quality lakes and ponds, to protect and restore the natural values and functions of our marine waters. The town has made significant progress in that direction in the last several years. Wetlands, wildlife, other natural communities are important resources to be protected. And one of the best ways to preserve those resources is to protect and conserve open space and conservation land. The second section, community systems. There are 3 sections. The goals are to sustain the local economy and have a broad range of year-round employment opportunities. In the area of housing, the goal is a diverse range of housing options and choices. Vital community services are necessary facilities as identified in the plan. They need to be efficient and cost-effective. In the area of history and heritage, important historic and cultural features of the town should be preserved. And arts and culture is an element of Orleans that should not be overlooked. The goal here is to have a variety of activities for residents. And the planning board decided to add a new section on governance. It's not a long section, but the goal here is to provide for the needs of today while protecting our assets and resources for the future. The third of the 3 areas is the built systems. The goal of the section is that Orleans would be a model of good design. Key infrastructure needs to be developed and maintained. The transportation network must respond to the travel needs of all users, whether they're in vehicles, on bicycles, or walking. There are 2 new sections of the plan that were required by the Cape Cod Commission. The goal under energy and climate is to have a future energy infrastructure that is clean, efficient, and resilient. And under community resiliency, this is the place where we acknowledge that there is climate change and sea level rise that are measurable and affecting the community, and we need to take action to limit injury, loss of life, loss of property, and make it so that Orleans is resilient to the kinds of events that have occurred in the past and are likely to occur in the future. So just 2 more slides here. This is the action plan. I don't expect you to be able to read it, but I want you to know what's in it. Under each of the goals, there is a proposed set of actions to achieve that goal. The action plan contains the actions, the anticipated timing of each action, the resources required, and that may be from staff, no direct resources, all the way up to, low, medium, and high costs for capital projects and other costs. There's a lead responsible agency that is indicated, so we have someone to point to say, you need to shepherd this along and make sure it gets done. A similar approach was used with the 2006 plan in that we identified a lead responsible agency, and it resulted in about 80% of the plan's actions having been addressed over a 20-year period of time. So as a note, the town charter does require that the comprehensive plan is used annually in the development of the budget and the capital improvement plan. The planning board has made recommendations every year, not this year because we're working on a new plan, but this check-in was documented in the past with an annual report and of the actions completed and the actions planned for the next fiscal year. And I think it's been pretty effective to make sure that we don't forget about the things that we think are needed. So the planning board has been asking questions for 3 years now, asking questions, listening, discussing, trying to make good decisions for the community. We're now in the home stretch, I assume. A couple clicks here. Oh, there we go. After tonight's hearing, the board will be briefing the Board of Selectmen 2 weeks from now in late March. We hope that the plan will go to the town meeting in May, and if approved, it will be formally submitted to the Cape Cod Commission for certification in late spring. So it's been a long run. I think we have a plan that encompasses most of the goals that have been identified by our boards, committees, and residents, and we hope that we're going in the right direction. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to turn over the microphone to you.
Great. George, thank you very much. We'll conduct the public hearing on the comprehensive plan now, and please, if you have some comments or some input for the comprehensive plan during this hearing, please come up to the podium or sit at one of the tables here and identify yourself, and please have at it then. So, anyone want to start? We'll also take people that are online, but let's start with some folks that are here already.
Hello, I'm Dewan Parisi, live at Cedarland in Orleans. Just a question, is the board in a position to prioritize the actions of the action plan or just to lay out the size and resource requirements?
We haven't, that's a very good question. We haven't put them, I don't believe, in any particular order. We've just put them there as the actions to be taken, and I think we address priority in the executive summary, which is what George went through the highlights of, which are the overarching challenges and the themes and all of that. So the action plans aren't like the first thing we're going to do is this, and the second thing we're going to do is this. We have a period of time between now and 2050 to accomplish a lot of this, hopefully sooner rather than later. But the order in which they're getting done is really up to boards and committees, the select board and town meeting as to the priorities of these things getting done, and especially in terms of capital spending and operational spending. So
Okay.
the order in which, to address your question, is more about future decision-making. It wasn't the purview of the planning board to say what gets done first necessarily. We point out what's important, but it's up to the decision-making bodies of the town to actually execute the plan.
Thank you. And just another question. George, you mentioned at the beginning about milestones and developing milestones. I think it would be helpful to track progress on implementing the strategy.
Yeah.
Can you follow up on milestones?
Well, there are some things that are easy to follow up on and numerical for tracking purposes. The planning board has recently talked about, there's, for instance, by way of example, there is a need to rebalance the community, so there are a higher percentage of working families and young people in the community than presently. But we sort of bristled at the idea of making people a numerical goal for the community necessarily. So what we've landed on is to put the housing policies, zoning, and in a healthy economy in there to encourage and attract and make it possible for people to both live here and work here instead of a numerical goal. So there, when you speak of housing, the select board has adopted a goal of 350 new housing units over a 10-year period. They adopted that a year ago, and we are tracking that and making progress toward that. So that's the kind of milestone that we will probably hit with some effort over time. So yeah, I think, John, if you don't mind me just
Please.
giving you commentary for a while, you have a set of a huge amount of actions. There are about 110 actions in the whole plan, and it's I think what's important is they're always there and there's always reporting, so that as some of the sort of low-hanging fruit or short-term actions get done, there are still responsibilities to be taken on to kind of realize the aspiration of the community over time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments from the audience? Peggy, do we have anyone online with their hand up?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. I hate to close the hearing so soon, but
We've had 3 other hearings prior to this.
I know. So. Good. So if there's no other comment either online or in person, I will take a vote to, or a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, and then since we have Lynn online here, we'll do a roll call vote. Peter and Francesca, you won't have to vote tonight. So we'll take a roll call vote to close the public hearing. Lynn?
Yes.
Mary?
I'm Mary Wright.
Mariah?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
John Osmond, aye. The public hearing is closed. So, George, before we get into the item 4 on the agenda, and while we're still on the subject of the comprehensive plan, please bring the board up to speed on the next steps here in terms of comments to the plan and also the rewrite of the executive summary.
Sure, we've had a lot of input and incorporated nearly all of it into the draft. As I told you, I got some late comments from the Library Board of Trustees. At your last meeting, the board spent considerable time talking about edits to the plan, most of them focused on the executive summary. Those have all been put into a document that Amanda has been supporting and helping us to get incorporated and to add in some of the town logo colors and sort of the branding that has been approved into the final plan. So that is in the works already. It is our intention. I know, John, you had asked if we could have if the board could have the executive summary prior to the March 24th meeting with the select board, and I think we made a commitment we should be able to do that. I don't think it's that much. There's some repagination that has to happen, but we can certainly do that. Maybe we'll even have the whole plan document done by that, not sure. After we go to the Board of Selectmen, I think it's up to them whether they will put the document before the voters in May. I have not heard any indicators that that's not a yes, and we do have a placeholder article that was submitted and is under consideration.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the board before we move on in the agenda concerning the comprehensive plan? If not, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the district improvement financing discussion, and that's Amanda Converse, who's our Economic Development Coordinator and Public Information Officer, and the floor is yours.
Plug in your computer, or did you say if anyone? Okay, and we'll grab that. I'll pass out. You did get this presentation in your packet, but we reordered some slides after
Okay.
we presented to the Economic Development Committee this morning.
It's still warm.
Yeah, I know, so didn't want you to get confused by.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I gave you, do you still have yours? Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep. Technical point, there is a beautiful blue data stick that.
You could
was
just
on
leave
the-
that on the lectern. Thank you.
While Victoria is getting set up, I'll just give a little bit of context to what I'm doing here. So, as part of my role is to explore economic development tools that are available to different cities and towns, and whether or not they would be beneficial to the town of Orleans. One such tool is the district improvement financing, which is a state tool that we were able to get a technical assistance grant from the state of Massachusetts to explore the feasibility of implementing this tool here in Orleans. So right now, this is not a presentation as if we're going forward. This is just us exploring the feasibility of this tool. And we were able to, working with Mass Development, bring on Victoria Stores from Stores Associates, who has done this work quite a bit throughout the state and in other states that use it. They have a different name for it, but it's a similar type of tool. So we've been working together, and they'll give more context to what we've been doing. But I just wanted to let you know where this all came from.
Great. Hello. I see at least one familiar face. My name is Amanda Newmiller, and I am Director of Site Planning at Mass Development. For those who may not be as familiar, Mass Development is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Development Finance Agency and Land Bank. We partner with businesses, nonprofits, financial institutions, and communities, and we're really focused on achieving 3 goals: stimulating business, driving economic growth, and strengthening communities. Our team does that in many different ways, including loans, tax-exempt bonds, grants, and real estate services. So today, we are here specifically as a result of a grant through our Real Estate Services Technical Assistance Program, which is available through the Commonwealth's Community One Stop for Growth portal. And through that program, we provide a grant of services to work with a house doctor consultant on an economic development challenge that a community may be facing. We focus on many different areas, including community, municipal surplus property reuse, district development, downtown development, and in this specific case, district improvement financing, which you'll hear more about from Victoria. Mass Development has long provided resources related to DIF to educate communities on how to leverage this tool to spur growth and development in their neighborhoods and especially in their downtowns. We've been working with Victoria for many years on delivering these resources, including a pretty robust DIF guide that you can find on our website, and we encourage you to check that out. But with that, I will turn things over to Victoria to share some information about DIF and also the work we've been doing with Amanda and other wonderful staff here at the town to explore this option for you folks.
Thank you, thank you. So I have a PowerPoint presentation reprised with a little bit of feedback from the Economic Development Committee. Was very engaged this morning, and so we incorporated some of that into still short but fresher version of the slides. So we encourage everyone to use as a resource this new version.
And we're going to hold questions until the end, right?
Yes, exactly, because there are some technical aspects to this tool that are covered. We've tried to move them up front in anticipation of questions. So thank you for the introductions, both of you. And I also want to say, thank you for a really wonderful walking tour of the Village Center this afternoon. And we've been, in addition to that wonderful walk, and we could not have asked for better weather, we have, through our process, I've now met in person the finance director, the assistant planning director, and we've met, and tomorrow I'm meeting with assessing and DPW. So it's been really terrific to be here in person, to be with all of you as well. So why we're here, as Amanda Newmiller said, Mass Development provides a grant of services. that provides my services for a feasibility assessment, which is really taking a look at this and seeing, is it going to be useful for what the town wants to accomplish? And on a very preliminary basis, as I said this morning, on a preliminary basis, it looks like it could be an effective tool for you. So preliminary, my recommendation would be yes. Obviously, that's something that the town would go through a process to decide. A couple of the most important reasons were clear very early on in this process, which is how far along you are in the updated comprehensive plan, as well as the goals that are in that draft plan. The economic development plan from 2022 is in fact well done enough that it is still fresh 4 years later. And you've just completed the downtown housing overlay district. And all of these move together to show not just what the goals of the town are for community, commercial, and economic development, but what you want to do and have the ability to do in order to keep moving all of those goals forward. And that's one of the most important aspects of a feasibility study, is that you have a sense of what you will do when it becomes possible. And that is very strong here. So this shows that the town is poised for growth. You are already communicating your desired types of new private investment, and you've identified those ongoing goals. So today's discussion, we've introduced the consulting team. I'll touch briefly on the study and town review, a little bit of a Diff 101 so you understand the tool, and then some of the early findings. The next steps would be for me to complete the written report, which would be available for review and comment. Part of that rewriting will be re-estimating some of the numbers that I have today, because the build-out analysis is what are some of the exciting things that could happen, what are some of the ordinary things that are already happening, and then we will be working on what kinds of projects could this particular tool help the town accomplish? And that's going to be a very important conversation. The walkthrough today was really, really helpful in that, being able to see physically what's there now, what's working, what's possible. And we're looking at early April review, draft for the final report, very sensitive to your town meeting responsibilities and how that takes up so many resources. So we want not to be on top of that. So the other part of why was the grant applied for, was there are economic development activities that will push forward on the goals that you've already identified. And funding for those activities has been a challenge. This is true everywhere. And one of the items that was specifically identified in your economic development plan, one of the items that you checked the box is to start to get some organizational capacity. That is still important. You have Amanda Converse here. And more tools and resources that she recommends she get and that the town use, that's going to be essential. So additional expanding that organizational capacity to reach the goals that you've already identified. So for example, an economic development and tourism development fund. Technical assistance to businesses, surveys of businesses, helping them obtain grants where that's possible, training programs within your workforce, also entrepreneurial training kinds of things are all eligible for funding with this kind of tool. And we think of these as soft costs, and I'm going to pause just a moment, because often this tool, the early adopters were using it on major infrastructure projects, like the road work in the city of Amesbury a couple of years ago. Also water and sewer infrastructure. But every plan that I have worked on has always included both that major infrastructure, if there is the major infrastructure, but also, for example, in the town of Easton, where they had infrastructure, they wanted to expand their bike path because they had some beautiful clean bodies of water and green spaces, and they wanted to improve resident and visitor access. So some of the smaller quality of life, quality of living This is important for attracting new businesses. They think about where their leadership and their employees are going to be living and working. So the placemaking, the streetscapes, not as big ticket, but extremely important, and they're very much really the center here of what we've been talking about in the village center, is taking advantage of the opportunity for additional commercial growth, and rebalancing was a really good word. And also the anticipated cultural hub. These are the kinds of things that are the goals that we've been talking about that are driving what this tool could do for you. So I'm going to hop quickly into Diff 101. And I always start, I didn't this morning, but now I know, Diff is not a new tax. It is not a special assessment, and it is not a tax increase. It is a method of directing tax revenue, real property tax revenue, to specific purposes, such as economic development, to traffic control and sidewalks. It is a locally controlled tool to help communities attract and encourage, a word that's at the bottom of the slide and therefore not visible, the growth that you're already talking about, the growth in the community vitality. And at the core of a tool, district improvement financing, there are 48 states that have a tool like this. Most of them call it tax increment financing, which was already used in Massachusetts. So you say district improvement financing. It is in fact a little bit more accurate, the Massachusetts term, but makes you different from the other 47 states.
Just like always.
Yeah.
So what really underpins this is what I like to call the virtuous cycle. So starting up in the upper right-hand corner, you're relying on the private investment. Private investment increases assessed values. This works within the whole new growth capture within the Massachusetts real property tax regulations and laws. The increased assessed value when someone makes an investment and you have new growth creates increased tax revenues without a tax rate increase. So obviously, if you put $5 million into $5 million into a property, your tax bill goes up because you've created more value on that property. And it's that more value on the property is at the heart of it. That's where the tax revenues come from, not from a rate increase or an assessment. So you get those increased tax revenues because of the investments. DIF lets you dedicate a portion, all or a portion, it's up to you, of those revenues to fundings for the public projects that are pushing you forward in the way you want to go. And when you have made those investments, you've been out there, you're making connections, you're making community, you're doing some of the hard things, physically, the physical built environment that supports the new private growth. You're also showing the clear community commitment, and that generates a new wave of private investment, and you have the ongoing cycle that underpins the way this tool works anywhere. So the next question is really, well, what is this really doing? And this chart is a little bit technical, but it does show down in the lower right-hand corner, there's this big gray triangle called deposit to the general fund, 100% of tax revenue that you're already getting. And it's very, very important to understand that while this is a tool that if it is adopted enables a municipality to capture some of the new tax revenue, everything that you're getting, it's not taking money that you're getting now. If you have the growth, you get a portion of the growth. So you can see in this lower right-hand triangle, over the deposits to the general fund continue to grow as they always would, plus some portion of the new development, revenues from the new development that you're hoping to encourage. The green strip on top represents a portion of the revenues from that new growth. This is what is happening in part organically, and in part could come from some of the catalytic projects, like the redevelopment of the Governor Prince. And so the green strip is what becomes available for the economic development and other community projects get that virtuous cycle and keep it going.
And
We
that's
will come back
the-
to that.
The new growth in the district.
In the district, yes.
Not the whole town, just the district.
So if you, we're going to wait to the
Yeah,
end for
sorry.
questions.
I just wanted
But this is creating a pool of revenue
Yes.
that's on purpose diverted
Yes.
from the normal budgetary use to growth uses.
Yes. And there are a lot of rules. It's still controlled by the town. And this tool is happening, as Amanda Newmiller from Mass Development can say, the more people adopt it, the more people want to. And they see how it's being used. So the basic steps, right now you're in the feasibility study, but if you were starting from square one, the basic steps for establishing this kind of district are to articulate the purpose. What's your target area? You're engaging leadership, all of the different departments about, well, what do you want to do with this if you use it? You're identifying known and desired public goals, for example, support for site development, your economic development programs, infrastructure and livability, sometimes hard infrastructure in addition to all of these things. And within the public goals, what's becoming very important here, and every time I listen, is the capacity to move things forward, the capacity to make a phone call, sit down with a developer, maybe do a cut sheet for a site. And highlighted in gold is really where we are right now with the feasibility. Because the first two, the town had done so much work on to begin with. But evaluating the private investment potential, what could be built or revitalized? That's some of the numbers that I've been running based on input that I've been getting. And with those estimates of what could the total tax revenues be, and just say you diverted 50%, is that a meaningful amount of money over time in the 5-year, 10-year to contribute to funding the public projects that are being identified? And that's why I say on a preliminary basis that this looks feasible, because I see right now a good match between those two items. The private investment potential, the ability to make a contribution to the things you want to do. And then when you get into designing it, you're establishing management and reporting. It's local legislation. You don't need state approval. And that would be after the town made a decision. There's more of a process with that. So those are the basic steps. I want to come back and circle. This is my DIF mantra. DIF plays well with others. It can be used along with grants, business improvement districts, tax-exempt bonds, tax increment financing. All of these tools can be used within a DIF district, so you have a number of options for the kinds of things you want to accomplish. The only one that sits a little bit uneasily is tax increment financing. If you want to reduce the tax revenues to create an incentive, well, obviously you're reducing DIF revenues, and yet it has been used successfully together. So as I said, DIF is not a new tax, not a special assessment, not a tax increase. It lets you dedicate a funding source to public activities that attract and encourage the desired growth and investment, the things you're talking about right now. And it does not replace your ordinary zoning, budgeting, and spending processes. The legislative body is still controlling these things. And there's various fail-safes. For example, in an emergency, if there were money in the DIF fund that was not needed, you could use it for some of the tree clearing that the town has had to undergo since the storm. So it's not completely a lockbox, it's dedicated. So I feel I'm a little bit repeating myself here. The big box, the process to create a master plan, because you write a document for this. The smaller typeface is really how it works as a technical revenue generator. You establish the original assessed value of the district. So for example, if the town wanted to have this at town meeting in November, January 1, 2026. So the assessments, you know what those are. New growth on top of that is measured every year, and it's cumulative. So you're measuring the assessed value changes attributed to new growth and calculating what those are. And then you calculate all of it and capture some of the revenues from that increment associated with the new growth. So this is why it was so important and so terrific to have to spend some time with assessing and finance, because this integrates within their existing roles. It's very important that they understand at the feasibility what this is and isn't. So you're capturing some of the revenues according to the way you plan it. You're funding the projects, and then, as I said, if you're not using all of the money, you do have the option to return it. Also, you can amend the plan, you can cancel the plan. It's entirely within the purview of the local government to manage this. So the processes: define the district, identify the projects, estimate the tax revenues, create policies within that master plan of how you're going to handle the money, local process for adopting it, and then you manage over time with your existing staff. If you get a lot of growth and you want to expand, DIF revenues can be used to support district management activities. So it can be self-supporting in some ways. Very preliminary revenue estimates. Talking with the assessor over about 10 years, an estimated organic new growth at 1.25% increase in assessment from that, approximately 7.2 million over a period of time. So some portion of the tax revenues from that can be captured. I estimated an annual tax rate growth. Obviously, the tax rate would be what the tax rate is. So we've got the organic projects, things that are going to happen no matter what you do, and new growth from major or catalytic projects, like the Governor Prentz. I'm drafting a build-out scenario based on what was in the Housing Overlay District. If that rendering, if those build-out ideas were built, that could be a $22 million increase in assessed value, and that generates revenue. So we've got organic, and then we have catalytic investments. And I'm estimating some general other large projects that could come through in the next few years as we're going through the process of being a little bit clearer on some of the catalytic projects. So these are the underpins, the estimates. We just saw this, should look familiar. That's where that green stripe comes from, the organic growth that's already happening, and then the catalytic growth that is especially incentivized by the fact that the town is adopting a tool that's going to help attract, encourage, and retain private investment. Over time, over a period of 30 years, these estimates, it's slow. You've got to get the buildings. So by year 5, estimated small typeface, $600,000 could be coming in. That is meaningful for your economic development programming. Within 10 years, approximately 2.4 million. Just of what's captured, there's another 2.4 million that's going to your general fund in this particular very basic analysis. And then over time, it accumulates. And the growth might be faster than this, but I wanted to be very conservative in showing it to you for the first time. Another way to look at this is over the first 10 years, highlighted in gold, very bright, very deliberate, over 10 years, within the potential district, the general fund is still getting $45.8 million. We're not taking anything out of that. So your police, your fire, your schools, your roads, they're getting the revenue that they've always had. On the right is a cumulative deposit to the DIF fund. That's the bucket. And your bucket can be bigger or smaller. That would be something to decide. Over 10 years, $2.3 million, and we're getting into a more meaningful amount of money over that period of time. And I would then invite questions. I have a couple of discussion items, things that I'd like to hear communities talk about: the economic development capacity, site redevelopment, and infill and reinvigoration. But especially the technical questions, I want to make sure you're all have a pretty good understanding of what the tool is and therefore why the town applied for the grant to look at it.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll entertain questions from the board, please. Anyone want to start? Peter, please.
I assume that that the overall funding that's established is adjusted by CPI every year, right? Or some other means, consumer price index or some way. So if it's like 20 million each year, it's going to be a greater number that's going to the fund, right?
The fund will increase not based on CPI.
Or whatever,
Yes, it would increase based on the tax revenues from the new growth. So you have a $5 million increase that goes into the fund in, 2029. And then 5 years later, that particular project, they make another $1 million investment, so you've got that growing. But every year, even if they do nothing, a portion of that new growth is going to go in. As your tax rate goes up, the dollars will go up.
Right.
What is also possible is you get to capture the float, the money comes in. If it doesn't go right out the door, the interest earned on the fund becomes available for use for your projects as well.
I guess my question is, let's say you establish how much money is going into the general fund, right? Like, say in January. Now, there's obviously inflation and other aspects that are going to change that in the next year. So if it's 4 million, what is it next year based on inflation or some, you understand what I'm saying?
I do, but it's not based on inflation. It's based on changes to the town's tax rate, things that the town controls, and changes to the assessments. And that's what changes the amount of money that goes in any given year.
So just to clarify, there's really, the diff is really identifying two streams of income. One would be the growth, let's say, of non-invested growth, which would be the normal growth, either through tax rate or through assessments. Through the tool, we take a portion of that, and then if there are investments in properties to incrementally increase their assessments over what would have been increased anyway, that's the other stream.
Well, actually, you only get what you described there as the other stream.
Yeah.
So the way DIF works, it has to be new growth.
Okay, it just can't be the normal,
that's
the normal
Yeah.
growth, okay.
Nope, the normal growth is going to go into your general fund.
Okay, that clarifies.
Yeah,
The other
thank you, I'm
question,
glad.
What is the main resistance that communities have to adopting this, you find? Not understanding it,
It is one of the reasons that this tool is effective when you adopt it is that you've made a decision to get over the hurdle, the fiscal hurdle of going from year to year. We've got to do schools and public safety first. We can't think about economic development. We can't think about, crosswalks and sidewalk renovation because we have these other needs and they're very immediate. Whereas economic development it's feeding the birds. It is not necessarily immediate. And communities have to have a discussion about what we absolutely have to do now. This is why I keep talking about what's still going into your general fund. But they have to make that mental leap to investing in some things that are going to happen in the future. And that can be very difficult. But
In a way, you can look at it, the word I'm going to use is inappropriate maybe, but it's a disciplinary tool. Because what it does is it's like creating a savings account for a young child.
Yeah.
It forces you to put money into a place
Yes.
that doesn't hit you here, but it hits you out here. And it forces you to divert funds that otherwise would be normally absorbed by the normal budget function, whereas I have this money, I'm going to use it.
And we said don't use the word divert, right? It's designate.
Designate,
Yeah,
dedicate.
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, divert is one thing that
You're
makes people bristle.
saying, what you're saying,
Did I say
if we
divert?
adopt this as a town, we're saying to ourselves that the short-term, normal, traditional budget function is fine, but we're also evolving to a place where we can take some of what we would normally count on as funds and not diverting, but recategorizing them into longer-term funds used for projects that grow us.
Yes. And you fund the projects that grow you. Growing you gets you more funds for more projects that grow you, and that's the virtuous cycle.
So it's
Some-
an earmark. You're saying that this
It's
is
an
what you're
earmark.
going to use it for.
Yes.
But you've also, it's not, because these are not bonds, I mean, we're not doing financing by it. That's why you're saying if you end up in a general fund crisis, there is the ability to take those funds because it has not been designated, or really,
Right.
it's not been legally binding to finance something.
Yes.
'Cause it is all short-term projects and not long-term debt.
Yes. And I will say that this tool is used by communities that I worked with. A very common use is to take some of these DIF revenues and put them toward a general obligation bond where you're borrowing, not a revenue bond, they're more expensive, but a general obligation bond. You've got your general fund revenues and your ordinary taxing power is really what's supporting a particular kind of very expensive, heavy infrastructure. You can put DIF revenues toward that. It takes a little bit of relief off the general fund, and some municipalities do that, so you can combine it. Most of what we've been talking about here within the village center is what I would call pay-as-you-go. That option down the road is there. If the town implements, you put that in the master plan.
And I think it's important to note that you can structure it. We can structure it however we want. We can say this much money up to this amount. We can say this is only for 10 years, 20 years, 30, you said 30 years is mostly what communities do. And we can say 50, 75%, 100%. So there's flexibility there. And I think we can figure out how we can meet Orleans's needs while also satisfying the schools and the fire and that, all of that.
Other questions from the board? Francesca?
How does the funding get approved for the use of these funds for a particular project?
It's a two-step process. The first thing would be to make sure that the project is in the master plan that would be created during an implementation. That can be a little bit vague or general, or broad is actually the best word. So you could say, we're going to fund the Economic Development and Tourism Fund. But we don't have to say, and it's going to be $50,000 every single year.
Okay.
So the second step with that would be, in any given year, the ordinary budgeting process would say, okay, out of the DIF revenues, we are putting X dollars specifically for 2028 into the Economic Development Fund. So there's that two-step process. Make sure if it's a general goal or project type that you want, is it going to be sidewalks, planters, public art, cultural center? Do you want to make sure that down the road, if you need to do road work or some more heavy infrastructure, put that in there? And then you are enabled to do it. If it's not in the master plan to begin with, so if you don't say Economic Development Fund, you can't fund it. So that would be in there. And then when the money is there, it's an annual decision through the budget process of how those DIF funds are used within DIF purposes.
But does that go first, like the allocation of the funds, does that happen at town meeting? Like we would vote to approve? No.
It would just be in the budget, right, which we do approve it.
Okay. And then once the money is in the Economic Development Fund, for example, who is making the decision about, okay, well, we want to do these sidewalks, for example?
It would essentially be the economic development budget at that point.
Okay.
So
Okay. So then it's internal. Okay. So then the public input on like what projects we're specifying the fund could be used for happens like now in the process of creating the fund and like going to?
I think now, but we also, I think, and George can also chime in, whenever we have projects, we're continually getting public input about what's important. I think, there's
Continually.
continually.
And ask for some?
So I think there will be lots of opportunity. I keep thinking about Depot Square, as, could be, that would have been like a really good potential project for something like this.
If we were 10 years into this, we'd be able to fund it.
Right, exactly. But so picture that particular project, and we've gotten a lot of we've heard from the public they want that, and then we've had public input about how it would be expressed. So I think we definitely want to know people's priorities now in the broad sense, but we'll always be checking in
Okay.
with the public to make sure that.
Then thank you. The last question I had was, I can't remember exactly what it was called, and I don't remember who came and talked to us about it, but it was about another kind of study maybe that was happening in the like zoning overlay district maybe, but maybe more to do with like Town Cove, and it was more about like the physical landscaping potentially.
The downtown resiliency project.
Yes.
Better stormwater mechanisms and beautifying the downtown as we go.
Is that, I forget who is doing that, but is that something that this money could be used for, or would be, or not really?
Those would be public improvements. Those could be, we could,
So the Town Cove area is within district?
Within the housing overlay district.
Yes.
yes.
The diff district is the same,
Okay.
right now, what we've been working is the same boundaries as the,
So, but, that's an excellent question that you ask, because the basic genesis of this tool, going back to that virtuous cycle, the public investments really should be tied to some way of attracting and encouraging the new private investments.
Right.
So which is where, the hard infrastructure, that's an easy, we can't build it if we don't have sewer. People can't get to work if they can't walk down the street. So you want to have that connection. The economic development programs, business outreach, technical assistance have a very close nexus with private investment and growth, are very closely related to the public projects. When you get into climate resiliency, the nexus gets a little bit weaker, because that's much more of a general, everybody needs this is important for everything. So the best kind of DIF project is one that's very closely tied to attracting that new investment within your targeted area.
Okay.
And also when you're talking about, the watershed and the preservation, there are other sources of revenue, much harder to get an economic development fund with a federal or a state grant. So that nexus is what's really important, and it's a way to prioritize, because then you can see, and there was talk earlier with the comprehensive plan, well, how do you know when you've succeeded?
Right.
Well, somebody made a $1 million investment. They put another floor where we wanted 3 apartments on top of a flat roof. That's measurable.
Other questions from the board?
go for it.
Anyone else?
I think Lynn has her hand raised online.
Lynn, do you have your hand raised? Go ahead, please.
I do, yeah. So I think you said it, the district we're talking about is the housing overlay district, right?
That's the boundary that we've been using up until this point, yes.
Okay. And is that decided, or is that, it's the one that makes the most sense, or is there any talk about any other configuration?
It was the one that made the most sense when we were applying for the grant, because that's where we see the most investment being
Okay.
like in the future, being there. But I think we even talked today about potentially changing some of the boundaries a little bit as we were walking. So
Okay, so it's not.
it's not final. Nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not, okay.
So,
The
input
other,
welcome.
the other question is about sort of the initial spark, right? you've got to have an initial spark that then creates something beyond organic growth. And you mentioned Governor Prince as the, like, one of the initial sparks that creates something beyond organic growth, right?
Yes.
And that's then, but you have to wait for that spark to have done something measurable that you can then say, yeah, this is, we've generated revenue beyond what we would have projected.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
And you said, so are there any other sort of spark kind of things? And again, that would be if someone, if the housing overlay district results in somebody coming in with a development project, that would be another spark.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I like that term, sparks. I do, your question reminded me of something that I think is important to know. You can use DIF in more than one part of your community. The restriction is the percentage of total acreage within the community. It can't be more than 25%. This is single digits. And so down the road, if you said, oh, we have this other area where we think it's a good tool, you would almost certainly be able to do it in another part of the town later. So you don't, it's not one and done. I've been working with a town in Connecticut that managed to get their sewer funded. They had a public-private partnership, worked incredibly well for them. And now they came back and said, well, we have a village center, and we're thinking, is this a good tool for us to use? They sound very much like you, to revitalize and encourage some of the growth we want in our village center. So,
Because I think that certainly, you know, we continually look at particularly East Orleans and, you know,
Yeah.
what can happen there. And certainly the desire to create the network of sidewalks, at least just in that very small area as a start, which we definitely see as something that could be the spark that could get the investment. And so we're just looking for, you know, which do we have to spark first, right? But that's good to know that we do not, and certainly we have South Orleans as well. So that's good to know that it's, you know, we don't have to just pick
no.
one spot. Okay.
I have more of a functional question at this point. So you have visited so far with our finance department, right?
Yep.
And our economic development committee, and you're seeing us now. Have you seen the finance committee yet? Not yet. I see Elaine's shaking her head. I would absolutely encourage you to meet with them, because they're going to need to, and their questions will be even better than ours, about how this is going to work and you know, not using the word diverting money, but the reclassification of monies and that sort of thing. I also have a question about, because what comes into my mind here is the mechanism here is a little bit like CPA, right? Because CPA is community preservation, where you're taking certain percentage of tax, creating a pool, and then you develop some projects that everybody competes on, and you select 10 or 8, whatever projects, and you fund them using this set-aside monies. It sounds to me a little bit the same way, except it's not based upon taxes, it's based upon investment results, getting you some other funds. The way the CPA works is those projects get approved by town meeting. Would we be doing a similar thing in terms of those projects, or they would just be projects that are generally understood to be things that we wanted, and once we have enough money, we would do them? Something
They
like that.
don't get approved at town meeting, correct? The projects over year over year.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It really, it's not required.
Yeah.
It's your ordinary budgeting process. You say, okay, we have $500,000 for streetscaping, and that's going to be public art and planters and this and the labor to do it and to water the plants. That $500,000 would come through the budgeting process.
And the budget, I mean, and the budget goes in front of town meeting, so it does get,
Indirectly, it gets approved.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Indirectly, it doesn't become a black box that, you know, somebody gets to manage all of the money. There is a lot of input. The And I'd like to think that when the legislature updated the statute in 2006 and really cleaned it up to make it much more workable, they were thinking ahead, thinking, how do we structure this statute? How do we write the statute in the programs so that we're not doing something outside of the regular local government processes, too much outside of it, because you all have enough to do. And so DIF is intended to be, nothing is ever entirely seamless, but it is intended and designed by statute to work within your existing processes at all of those levels.
I have a question.
Please, Debbie.
I assume when you do the master plan, the DIF master plan, that you could generally structure a process. Like, you know, the town's going to identify through the assessment this pot. We're going to decide what percentage of that pot goes to this fund.
Yep.
Then once it goes to this fund, we can say, then it's under the new Department of Economic Development that we're committing our resources to for the next 30 years. And then the determinations about how to distribute that money or what projects to do, there would have to be, you could specify some kind of process, managerial process for that, right? I mean,
Some communities have a special managerial process because of the nature of their government. I worked with a fairly large city that really wanted to do it that way. Most of the communities, including some large ones and then some smaller ones, you know, Orleans scale, don't necessarily want to create a separate process. They want to fold it within the existing. But that is absolutely a conversation to have and to think about what the benefits are, who would be doing it, and really just making sure you understand the degree to which the local government is still in control of its funds. That's such an important question.
Well, I mean, I think our budgeting process is pretty, you know, as it stands now, is pretty regimented, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot of, like, I had to come in front of the finance committee and present what I would be putting, you know, what was exactly in my budget. And so I think we have good processes, is what I'm trying to say.
Other,
maybe.
other input or questions from the board? If not, I would just close in saying thank you very much for coming today, presenting this to us. I think it's very interesting for us to consider, and I would really encourage you to get in front of the Finance Committee and go through this with them, because I'm sure they're going to have very, very good questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Going to take me a moment
your
just to
time.
clear out my tech.
Please. So we'll go into then our next item on the agenda is committee reports. And I think we'll start with Mary and Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, and then Wastewater Management Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Board of Water and Sewers, last meeting, we approved the watershed management plan, which is, you know, how is it that you're protecting the watershed, which you left it pretty much the same as it was, with an eye towards looking at a whole forestry management program over time. But we thought for now, before we entered into that phase, we would just get it approved as it is. We did have another drought update. Yes, we probably will be in a drought despite all of the snow. I don't know that the snowpack will be sufficient to get us back up to non-drought levels, at least at that point. So we are planning on probably having that same water restrictions starting for the spring. So we will be moving on into that. Wastewater management, we've completed all the public hearings and whatever on Mill Pond and presented that to the select board. We are now in the process of getting that as a warrant article to be able to continue the study on Mill Pond, to be able to put those recommendations for how to do those short-term management, to figure out how to improve the water quality on a short-term basis in Mill Pond. Phase 4 planning, I know hard to fathom, is already starting without phase 2 having been completed. I think the date for substantial completion is now, George, what is it, like in 2 weeks? probably for phase two.
Very, very close.
Very close. So we will be able to celebrate the final completion of phase two in some way, shape, or form.
By the sending of letters.
Exactly, saying congratulations. Phase three, we're in the process of, those bid specs are being completed, and so hopefully we'll be able to send those out for bids shortly.
Great.
So that's wastewater management.
Great. Mary, thank you very much. Francesca, CPC?
Yeah, really no update since the last. We have finalized or voted on the projects for funding for this year that will go to town meeting. We do have a meeting this week with one agenda item. It's reinstating an account for a grant for a project. And so, yeah.
So work
Update there.
substantially done, and the next
Yes.
bid is town meeting.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Lynn, update on the Finance Committee?
Yeah, two things I would talk about. They met last week. It was a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Select Board to review the capital plan for '27 and the capital improvement plan going out 5 years. And the big discussion for '27 is the fire station. It's in at almost 60 million. And I would say there's 2 points of view. And one point of view is, things have gotten a lot more expensive. We need this at this size. We've looked at every alternative. It's 60 million. That's where we are. And another point of view is, which raises a point that the Finance Committee has been concerned about. It's a lot of debt. And we already, by some metrics, are at a level of debt that is quite high compared to an entire list of Massachusetts communities, including the Cape. And we add the fire station and the planned sewer projects. It's really, the debt level is very high. And what can we afford to do, if anything, in the foreseeable future beyond that? So that's a big discussion. And the finance director is going to go to the Finance Committee at their next meeting to talk about the issue of debt, because it's a big one. And you may remember that last year, one of the Finance Committee members voted against the town budget because of debt issues. But there's more than just one Finance Committee person that has concern about it. So the related issue is that in the 5-year plan, Kim had moved the planning funding for the design and plan of what they are still calling campus plan, was scheduled, as was funding for design of the Snow Library. And she's moved both of those things out, and the library she's moved out to 31. It was earlier than that. And she made the point that she may move all of those things again, even further out, because she's not at all sure that we're going to be able to fund the new library even in 31, and whether we should be doing the design in 29 for the library and the design for the campus plan in 30. So lots of concern about how we're going to manage some of the things that's in our comprehensive plan and in the capital improvement plan for the future. The other thing I would say is, and I wrote both John and George a note, it seemed to me that people were thinking Snow Library, campus plan, the senior center is not even though it's in our comprehensive plan, and sort of a potential cultural anchor is in the comprehensive plan, those things were not talked about. And it seemed to me that people are still thinking very individually, library, campus plan, whatever that is, senior center. And I said, I'm glad to hear, George, that we're going to be able to do the executive summary, because we decided at our last meeting that we should say, consider all of those things in a coordinated way, not necessarily by any means one building, but think about it all. And particularly as we have a challenge with capital availability, it needs to be coordinated, not just thought of in silos. So that is the Finance Committee. And they're going to continue that discussion at the next meeting.
Great. Lynn, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate your input also about that subject for the comp plan, and we're going to be able to handle it, I think, in the executive summary. Debbie, or are we not having a report because they already made one?
No.
Oh, please go ahead.
There's additional to report.
Please.
But we had our meeting this morning, and the meeting was this presentation that you all got. And we had lots of questions trying to wrap our brains around what they were talking about, actually. But I think this presentation was very clear and should work well going forward. And the idea that we would again meet, and continue in the process as the Economic Development Committee, since that committee would theoretically be closely tied to whatever happens with the DIF. But in addition, Amanda is super busy, and I'm trying to remember, I didn't bring in my notes from her report to us, but she's organized with the Commons, which is a Provincetown organization, a series of workshops for businesses in town. And the other thing that she's been working on that I've been participating in is the Cultural Comprehensive Plan. And we had 2 meetings, the Amanda and the Recreation and Community Services Department, I think that's what they're called, are also part of it. There was a really good committee bringing together the town-based cultural and arts committees, as well as heritage group, to go through just this huge listing of questions and issue areas and ideas that was sort of free-flowing, that the staff will now take back to organize some public outreach to get started. See where we end up.
Thank you very
We're
much.
already implementing the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. And Mariah, transportation on bikeways?
Yes. So one of the big topics in transportation and bikeways is this idea of the connector, the sidewalk connector going from Beach Road all the way down to Nauset. And so they've been doing a lot of exploring. They've hired this company called VHB to kind of come up with some views of what this could look like, different, whether it's this wide and, on this side or that side. And so this past meeting was the first meeting after the public session, where they took this to the public and said, hey, here's what we're thinking. It could look like this, we could do it like that. And in general, the public feedback received at this meeting is that the Nauset Heights and Beach Road intersection proposals were more aggressive than people wanted. Like, people seem to want more of just a sidewalk and not like this lane with a berm and a curb and take out all these poles and do all that. So there's now a movement to figure out what to do next. The big question was, okay, so now what's the next thing we're gonna ask for from VHB and what we want to look at for our next view on this. I wasn't at the public meeting. George, if you were at the public meeting, was there anything else that you can provide?
I think the committee, after hearing, there had about 60 or 70 people attend the hearing. Yeah, a lot of input on Beach Road. I think they would like to see the consultant look at something minimal that just allows for safe walking. So to get a sidewalk on one side of the street, and then to evaluate that and see if it could be acceptable within, because we don't own a layout, the layout of the road is not laid out, so we only own to the edge of the pavement on both sides, which really hems you in before you're into property taking. So we're trying to avoid property takings, trying to find something that is acceptable to residents who live along that road and have a variety of, concerns they express at the public meeting. We will keep trying till we get it right.
And minimize the impact on all
thank you for the
utility
opportunity.
poles and everything like that.
If we had a sidewalk, it's gonna be like driving on the Sagamore Bridge, it's gonna be like,
Oh my gosh, please no.
So this is still part of the feasibility monies that were approved?
Still in the feasibility stage.
Yeah, so still part of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank
Stay
you.
tuned.
All right, thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, and we have two sets of minutes to approve. The first one is for the meeting of February 10th, and I will take a motion to approve the minutes of February 10th meeting.
Move to approve?
And I need a second.
second,
Thank you. If there's no discussion on the minutes of February 10th, we'll take a roll call vote. Lynn?
Yes?
Mary?
Mary Wright, aye.
Mariah?
Yes.
Debbie?
Aye.
John Osman, aye. So that's the minutes of February 10th are approved. So the minutes of February 17th, there was a correction that Mary had alerted us to, and Karen has given us a substitute copy of the minutes of February 17th with the correction included. And so I will take a motion to approve the corrected copy of the February 17th, 2026 minutes.
So moved.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. And if no discussion, we'll take a roll call vote again. Lynn?
Yes?
Mary?
Mary Wright, aye.
Mariah? Debbie?
Aye.
And John Osman, aye. So minutes are approved. George, let's talk about future agenda items.
Sure. Well, you have that briefing with the select board, essentially the same slides as I presented here, and see if we can get their input, and they will make a decision before, I think, around the first week of April to finalize the warrant. We have received a request to release the lots on Monomoy Lane, that is down in South Orleans on Quonset Road. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. When everything's done, I'll bring the materials to you and you can act on that request. We'll see if it gets done for the next meeting or not. And I would like to have Elizabeth come in April and talk about a zoning schedule for fall town meeting. There's a variety of cleanups that we want to get started on, and I would love to have the board have a discussion on that and kind of set the parameters, and then we will start doing our work. So if we have a fall town meeting, we probably have to have a public hearing by August. So we'll move on that, but we just want to make sure that you're aware of everything we're talking about. So I think that's it for now.
Okay. Before we adjourn, anything else from the board? Any other questions, comments, or input?
Mr.
Mary,
Chair, if I
please.
could, given the conversation we had about economic development today, I just wanted to let everybody know the Orleans Citizens Forum next session will be on economic development. That's on Thursday, the 26th. Paul, and I never pronounce his last name correctly, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce for...
Zwicky.
Thank you. Will be one of the speakers, along with Amanda, and Cam Hadfield will be from the rail, will be the moderator. We'll have a slightly different forum setup in that after the presentations, we're going to ask the group to break out into separate groups to have conversations around the lever that they think is important in terms of economic development. Those little groups will be chaired by individual business owners from the town. So I think to the request that people have been making for the Citizens Forum to not just do, a lecture, to try and have some conversation around action steps, we think this will be an interesting way to do that. So you will all, I'm sure, receive the actual email about that. This should be shortly, but just to let you know that that's coming up.
Great, thank you, Mary, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we adjourn? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye. Oh, I guess we have to do a roll call. Let's do it. Okay, sorry. Lynn?
Yes.
Mary?
Yep.
Mariah?
Aye.
Debbie?
Aye.
John Osmond, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.